What is up, Rudo Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Rudos Podcast. I'm Jay, and I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Scotty Nobelt. Scotty, how's it going?
Doing well, Jay. Just sheltering in place, keeping my social, and trying to weather this viral storm. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I have been working from home, just dealing with cabin fever, trying to get out when I can and get a little fresh air, maintaining my social distance, of course. We have to be cognizant of that.
You couldn't be a hero just by staying 6 feet away from everyone else.
That's right, 6 feet away. And I'm also pretty cautious too when I go into like the stores. I have a mask and gloves. I feel like I kind of need the Outbreak style respirator outfit, but can't get those right now.
Yeah, I've been practicing my footwork and my kicking as I use my feet and other things to try to open up doors and hit elevator buttons. A good knee strike, it's all good.
Have you been able to like grasp stuff with your toes yet, or are you not that advanced?
My toes, my butt, whatever.
Wow, you're using it all.
Yeah.
Well, we can't tackle all of this alone today. We're joined by our good buddy up north, the man maintaining his social distance, sheltering Steve.
Ooh, you see, you'd have me onto something there, but I'm outside, fishing, cutting trees down, catching bugs, donating to the museum, sitting by my campfire.
What? You can't do that. You're supposed to stay indoors.
Talking to all my island relatives who are all animals,
Your island relatives, hey, please explain.
Jay is not up on the hip things with the kids.
No, I'm not. Are you talking about like Vancouver Island?
No, I'm talking about a video game, Jay. I got you.
Oh,
here.
you're playing. You're one of the many playing Animal Crossing Island thing or whatever.
Island thing, you got it. That's the subtitle. Good job, Scotty. You figured it out.
Animal Crossing Island thing.
That's it. He's got it.
Man, that goes to show you how out of touch I am. I don't play video games anymore. So, yeah, I'm not hip with it.
True, you're not. Just demonstrable.
So, Steve, what kind of culinary masterpieces are you coming up with the kitchen? You're obviously stuck there sheltering in place. Have you been doing any more cooking than you normally do?
Kind of. We've got a reasonable social distance delivery available, so it's not too bad. There's actually a bar in my building that's doing takeout, so I don't even have to go outside. I can get bar food. But I did decide to break into my cans today, make some refried beans for the first time.
Oh, there you go, spicing it up a little bit. Did you what'd you throw in there?
1,000 pounds of red chili. No, that's not true.
Just a few dashes.
I got some dishes and some dashes, yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. Scotty, what are you whipping up over there at the Nobelt household?
I actually just whipped up a wonderful Wisconsin-style brandy old-fashioned.
Wow, there you go. Brandy old-fashioned for Mr. Scotty Nobelt. How does it taste? I'm not a big brandy fan, so I'm a little.
Hey, whoa, we're not at that company yet.
Oh, come on. We know Sammy Guevara is a brandy fan, right?
Indeed.
We learned that.
We did learn that. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Dark Side of the Ring, the 2 episodes about the Chris Benoit story, and then we're going to jump on into a quick highlights on AEW Dynamite from this week, another empty arena show. This one run with even more of a skeleton crew. It had a very odd feel to it, but they still managed to pull it off, and we'll get into it and break into those highlights. But first, gentlemen, let's talk about the really in-depth documentary released by Vice, 2 parts, The Dark Side of the Ring, and it's chronicling the relationship between Chris Benoit and his wife Nancy, also known as Woman, on the wrestling scene there in WCW and ECW. And I gotta say, this it is a tough watch, man. Those 2 episodes, just I can't imagine watching them back to back. Steve, did you watch them back to back?
No, God, no. I watched them a week apart.
You have to, just for your own sense of well-being, right?
Funnily enough, the first episode didn't really get me that badly. I don't know if I just don't have a connection with Eddie Guerrero, because the first episode was much more focused on Eddie Guerrero, actually.
Yeah, they really got to me, man. The Eddie stuff, Chavo's tale or story about when he found his brother, and
that was tough. I mean, that was right at the end of the episode, basically.
Yeah. But the lead up to that too was really hard, where Vicky Guerrero is talking about how Eddie's body was so broken down. He was in so much pain. He was obviously relying heavily on painkillers, like falling asleep. She said, he would overdose multiple times. It was just awful stuff to hear. Scotty, what did you think about that first episode?
So for the first episode, I really liked let's call it the first half an hour or so, right? The highlights from the classic matches they had, hearing about where they came from. There was some good nostalgia for me there. But then, obviously when you get into the downfall of both of these guys, whether it's Eddie or Chris, seeing how kind of Eddie, oh man, he just did a lot of things that were really hard on his body. And it's unfortunate passed away. But then seeing how, because this is something I'd never really thought a lot about, seeing how much, and even I thought it was weird how much detail they were going in, since it was supposed to be the Chris Benoit story, but seeing how much that impacted Benoit, that was new for me. And I felt for a lot of people during that part of the show, actually.
Yeah, that was just absolutely heart-wrenching. I mean, that whole Eddie part is so sad. I mean, you see, and I mean, you go back to it, you look at Eddie. He was never a huge wrestler, right? Always kind of smaller wrestler. I mean, he was a muscular build when he was in ECW, and you kind of saw him in AAA when he was teaming with Art Barr. And he in WCW, he did pack on some more muscle. He got a little bit bigger. And then in he just, I said it. Oh, man.
You got yourself fast this time, at least. You didn't need one of us to call you out.
No, I realized it. So,
besides, it was the WWF.
That's true. We can say that it was the WWF. So that one we don't have to bleep out, because that's trademarked by a different company now. So, yeah, I mean, just that whole thing about he went to the bad 3-letter company. He felt, I guess, compelled to put on the extra muscle to get that main event push, and you look at the way his body transformed from when he first signed with the company to his world heavyweight title run. I mean, you could tell that he was going heavy on the gas. He just was massive, absolutely massive, and that contributed to it. Obviously, all of the injuries, the painkillers, and all of that went along with dealing with that day-to-day pain and that fear that he had, and Vicky alluded to it, about not wanting to take time off and be off television because he was afraid that his spot was tenuous and he would lose it. I mean, that kind of pressure in that environment, I can't imagine that, what it would have been like to be under that kind of pressure to go out there and perform every night. I mean, Scotty, what do you think? How much pressure do you think somebody like Eddie would have been under during that time period to go out there and perform and to do so while hurt?
I think this, and I'm saying this based on listening to other folks who are from maybe the generation before, like Arn Anderson and some other guys, when they're talking about this too. And there was that mentality, if you came up before, like when the territory still existed, where you weren't getting big dollar contracts, and it was kind of like, if you don't work, you don't get paid, and if you aren't working, you're also gonna kind of disappear. So for someone like Eddie and Chris, who they were still around and coming up before all the money got super mega bonkers and all the guaranteed contracts, like, I totally get it. And Eddie Guerrero was certainly driven to be great, right? Like, you hear this from all the other wrestlers that talk about him, and Benoit, like these guys, they both only wanted to be pro wrestlers, and they were driven to be the best at the one thing they wanted to do. So, you've seen this in a lot of other sports, like especially in the NFL, where like, you have people doing steroids and playing when they shouldn't, and it's not good for them either. So it's just this kind of messed up mindset that, so some people, I don't want to say like they're taking the easy way or they're cheats or anything, but some people are willing to, at the minimum, let's say, take that risk with their body, right, for fame and fortune.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the pressure, right? You look at wrestling then, it's much different, at least now, than it was then, when physique was a huge part of it. Obviously, everybody knows about how the Bad Three-Letter Company and Vince McMahon feel about physique, and a lot of the big promoters at the time put a heavy emphasis on having the huge, just jacked guys, and that put a lot of pressure on the wrestlers at the time to, as you mentioned, kind of try to take those shortcuts to put on mass. And I mean, you think about it, that schedule is so brutal. You're on the road, you're going from town to town. You got to try to find time to work out. I mean, rehabbing injuries, that's not even a possibility. The schedule is insane. And they didn't really dive too deep into that, but it's definitely something that we know about, that we've seen how the Bad Three-Letter Company's touring schedule is so hard on the performers. Steve, do you think that they intentionally didn't really dive into that part about it with the brutal schedule?
I mean, yeah, I think so. It's just sort of background noise in a lot of ways, right? Like, that certainly leads to the physical injuries, but they're not talking about like painkiller abuse. I don't think that was sort of like that wasn't really a part of it. I forget. Maybe there was a section I remember somebody mentioned, like, oh, maybe it was. I think maybe it was in the Benoit part, actually, the second episode. But they were discussing, maybe it was a CT, maybe it was drug abuse, maybe it was steroids, maybe it was like 3 other things, or maybe it was all of them, kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
that's the only time I think I remember them mentioning painkillers or anything related to actual like tangible recourse to the pain. That and the you mentioned Vicky mentioning Eddie being in pain, right? Like that. That's kind of it. I don't know how much that stands out. They obviously wanted to focus on the steroid stuff. They obviously wanted to focus on the like actual relationship and kind of making it almost. It felt like they kind of wanted part one to be positive as much as they were covering a tragedy because they knew that there was a much greater tragedy coming in part two.
Yeah, I mean, part two was just, it was just, I mean, just the recount of the crime scene, seeing a few of the photos, the sheriff or former sheriff's employee who talked about going into the house and discovering the bodies. Oh, it was just, that whole second episode was just difficult. And then at the end, right? The end with David recounting when the police officer told him about the murder and murders. And I mean, gosh, just seeing David break down was just, I mean, I had a tough time keeping it together watching it. I mean, what did you think, Steve?
That was you're talking about the section where David was explaining being told, and then he had to stop, and had like Chavo came over and his aunt came over. Is that the section you're talking about? Yeah, that was the only time between the two episodes that I teared up.
Scotty, what did you think about that part? Did that get you?
Well, I mean, man, I feel a lot for that guy. So if you haven't seen this, and as we're talking about, knowing that Benoit and his wife and son were part of the tragedy. This is his son from his first marriage, who's living with his mom, who lives in Canada, and he's miles away. They've told us though about how much, not only does he love his dad, obviously, but how much he talked about how much he really loved Nancy and how close he and his brother were. And yeah, that part was really
stood
tough.
out to me? You know what stood out to me about that? The fact that he talked about how much he still loves wrestling. That part was really. It's hard to explain why that matters, I think, but it's like if you're. I can't think of a good analog. There's too much nonsense here. There's no good analog for it. But, your parent, some horrible thing happens to your family related to something that you love, and just like still diving into it and still loving it, and how complicated that feeling has to be.
Oh, sure. I've heard somewhere, or it was some kind of news that, he wants to break into the wrestling business. And best of luck to him if that is true. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, for him to still have that passion about wrestling after all of that, I mean, to see that is truly the dark side of the ring for him to experience that and still want anything to do with the wrestling business. I mean, maybe it was because Chris Jericho and Chavo Guerrero kept in contact with him. They talked about that. Sandra, Nancy's sister, talked about how when they asked her, did anybody from the wrestling industry reach out to you, later on after everything happened, she said no, nobody other than Chris Jericho and Chavo Guerrero. And so it was cool to see them go out there and step up and support the family after all of that. I just can't imagine. I mean, grief is, we've all experienced grief. Grief is rough, but that is an entirely different level of grief and shock. And, it's just unimaginable to think about going through all of that. And I mean, there was some stuff that they left out. They didn't mention anything about Perry Saturn coming over, but I think he's had some issues. So maybe
he's had some problems.
Yeah, so maybe that's why they left him off. And then one of the other things too that they didn't mention that I read about afterwards was that Benoit had two other close friends after Eddie Guerrero pass away within I think it was less than a year. So he didn't just lose Eddie.
I think that was actually mentioned, but it was very brief.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah, he lost two
or
other
I read it
friends.
somewhere else. But.
Yeah,
I didn't catch it if they did say it, but but that doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah, I remember reading about it somewhere else, that he lost two other very, very close friends who were just as close as Eddie or close to it. And so to lose all of that, I mean, I don't know. And they tried to go a little bit into what caused it, but it's just so hard to do when he's gone and you can't ask him the question, right? And so I don't know. It's just it did kind of have that open-ended sort of conclusion there, but it was nice to still see the family together and to see Sandra and David connecting after all of that, right?
Yeah, that was really a good moment and good to see that. To a certain extent, they're the two people that really have each other left out of that, their little, portion of that family that they both really loved.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's all, he has on that side. So I don't know. It's just, just tough, a tough, but it was a very, very well done approach. I mean, this has been one of the most taboo subjects in all of pro wrestling ever. I mean, we kind of, we even bleeped out Chris Benoit's name on this show before. We were kind of joking around about it as how taboo it was, but it is seriously taboo. And for Vice to want to even approach this subject took some serious cojones to go out there and make a 2-part documentary about this. Right, Steve?
Yeah, and I think on top of what you said, I actually liked the section of the second episode, I believe it was, where Chris Jericho actually sort of says what you said, where it's really taboo, and in certain respects, that's a real downside to the business, especially with respect to Nancy Benoit not really getting any recognition for things.
Yeah, where her accomplishments as a manager were kind of overshadowed by the circumstances of her passing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's one of those things, as we've seen with the Bad Three Letter Company, is that they certainly are very quick to scrub problematic things from their history, right? They very aggressively curate and cultivate their brand and image, and that includes oftentimes cutting out many historical things that don't reflect well upon the Bad Three Letter Company, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at how long it took them to put China into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And only willing to do it as part of a group.
Yeah, exactly. She didn't even go in as an individual wrestler. She went in as part of D-Generation X. So you can check out I think Vice posted both parts of the documentary on their YouTube channel. So go into YouTube, search for Vice TV, and it's the Dark Side of the Ring. We even got a little preview for next week's Dark Side of the Ring, which is going to be about one of the craziest motherfuckers in all of wrestling. That's New Jack. Scotty, are you ready to see New Jack stab somebody in the face on next week's episode?
Oh man, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. I was about to ask, do we know what's coming up next? Yes, I'm super excited about this. And to be honest with you, you were saying with Benoit thing and how Vice took this thing that was really taboo and made something that was very engaging and felt very thoughtful. Can they do that with New Jack? If they can, that's a big feat.
Yeah, and it's another thing when New Jack is still there and you can interview him. I mean, we've all seen, you can go on YouTube and see other New Jack interviews, and New Jack doesn't hold anything back. He does talk himself up a bit, right? Like, fluff his own reputation up, as many wrestlers are known to do in these types of shoot interviews. But New Jack, he isn't going to pull any punches. And we definitely saw that in a little bit of the preview clips there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they say about old ECW and if they kind of get into that. I mean, you want to talk about Dark Side of the Ring, that whole ECW locker room there is prime material. You could probably do another 2-part episode on it. Right, Scotty?
Oh, yeah. That would be excellent.
There you go, Vice. Pay me. Do it. I'll do the episode. Well, the three of us. Steve, you want to do a documentary episode? We can, if
Absolutely
Vice will pay it. No? How do you look on camera, Steve? You wouldn't have to be on camera. You just do a voiceover for the documentary. Wouldn't even require you to be on camera. I'm disappointed, man. I thought you would want to be part of it.
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right. Well, that is it for talking about the dark side of the ring. Let's go to the light side of the ring here after that bit of a downer there to open the show. Let's talk about this week's AEW Dynamite. It was a very unique episode, one that we really didn't quite know what to expect. They pared down the crew in the show there to what amounts to basically almost nobody, right? They were down to a total skeleton crew. And I mean, it was down to such a skeleton crew that Jericho had to take over cameraman roles so that the cameraman could sing along to Judas.
I want to say that you're right. It was even more pared down this week than it was last week. And, because at one point this week we were going to get blood and guts. Obviously they can't even do that match because they're not allowed to have, 10 people around each other because that's the regulation apparently. And blood and guts requires 11 people to be in the ring together. So they were like, all right, well, we can't do that. And we got this, still pretty fun show, albeit very different.
Yes, it was very different. And I mean, you got to think, looking a little bit ahead to the coming months here, you have to start to wonder if we're going to see the cancellation of All Out at the end of May. I mean, the way things are looking now, Steve, it doesn't look very likely that we're going to be able to have a large wrestling event like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, right? That's 2 months out or a month and a half out, I guess.
2 months out.
Yeah. So you're probably right. It's probably the smart thing to do, but I doubt entertainment companies are going to likely do that if they ever get an all clear.
Yeah, it's you have to imagine that even with things going on, it's going to be a lot to ask people to go out and fly and, put themselves through the risk of exposure at the airport or on the airplane. So it's I don't know, it's things are so uncertain right now. It's hard to make any assertive statement one way or the other, but it's something that we'll definitely have to keep an eye on. So let's just do a quick dive in here on the matches. Starting out, we had curtain-jerking Cody Rhodes going up against Jimmy Havoc. I mean, this one we saw a little backstage clip, and the wrestlers they weren't even really backstage. They were hanging out in a trailer. Scotty, have you ever hung out in a trailer and watched wrestling before?
I'm from the South, so the answer is probably.
I forgot about that. Wow, I didn't even mean to set that one up, and I totally did. It was totally unintentional.
Yeah, but I think they had a trailer because they were again shooting at Daly's place, which probably doesn't have all the normal like green rooms or locker rooms that like an arena would have. I did notice, and I think this continues to show how crafty the folks running AEW are. The Daly's place setup looks awesome. I mean, even compared to what it was the last time they ran there, the setup looks cool. It actually works pretty well without having a crowd. You almost don't notice it, except for you don't hear them, unless they actually point them out. But the gambling stuff in the trailer actually allowed them to have people watching the show who are interested in it, and they even started piping in some of the audio from in there, so you still had people cheering and they had a reason to cheer. I thought that was actually pretty creative.
Yeah, that was a cool way to get around them not being able to have the wrestlers at ringside. I mean, last week was really fun when we had MJF and crew talking trash and gambling and all of that. So, yeah, given the new restrictions, it was pretty cool that they were able to make it work and, like you said, pipe in some crowd noise periodically for reactions and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was also fun. This match, we actually had Kenny Omega doing commentary because Cody was in the ring, so that was pretty interesting. I thought Kenny Omega did a pretty good job at that. And then this match was it was pretty fun. I mean, it's Jimmy Havoc, Cody, and they had a decent little match, and I mean, I will say at the end the top rope like reverse suplex that Cody hit on Jimmy Havoc. That was pretty baller, and then match is done.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that Jimmy was not following proper social distancing and hygiene as he grabbed Cody's tongue. Oh, that just looked gnarly.
Yeah, if one of them ends up with COVID-19 here in a couple of weeks, they can look at that moment if they're both sick.
Oh, terrible. Terrible. Yeah, like you said, the match was pretty much over once that top rope suplex was hit. And then Cody, I like how he threw out two crossroads there, not just one. Cody wanted to seal the deal and spiked Jimmy with two of them back to back.
Yeah. I thought that was good. It was a good a good match. Cody looked good. He looks like he's, trying to stay focused, and obviously at some point things will get really heated back up with things like blood and guts and whatnot.
Yeah, we still have the undercurrent of the Inner Circle versus the Elite feud throughout the night, and it's something that they'll probably keep alluding to kind of keep that storyline fresh in people's minds. Steve, what did you think about your fellow countryman Kenny Omega on commentary for this match?
I actually thought both he and Cody later, spoilers, Cody takes over later. I thought they both did a good job at being color because they were both, they do the classic wrestler on commentary thing, right? That's, oh, this move hurts like this, and oh, that move attacks that, so it's going to hurt this. And
Yeah, and I thought Cody was okay, or I thought Kenny was okay. I thought Cody was actually pretty good. Cody, I feel like, added a little bit more. I think Kenny wasn't quite as comfortable on commentary as Cody was. Cody seemed to be much more comfortable and had a much better, more natural rapport with Tony Schiavone. Or at least that's just kind of what I thought. Scotty?
Well,
the bad three-letter company expects you to do that more than maybe New Japan does.
Yeah, that's true. Cody probably has more experience joining as the extra man in the booth, right?
Scotty? Well, and also, Cody and Schiavone have known each other for a really long time. So I'm sure there was some built-in comfort there.
Yeah, that's true. They were friends. I mean, we saw that interview in the back seat of the car. Wasn't great, but I don't know if it wasn't down to the chemistry between the two men. It was just due to the circumstances of shooting it. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, they have a relationship, a longer term relationship. So maybe that just sort of naturally allows them to have that really good chemistry together on commentary. And
Yeah.
and speaking of really good, man, Scotty, what about that Jake the Snake promo after this match?
Jake always brings it when he's on the mic, right? Like, and he definitely did in this little vignette they shot of him. I had a question because they were bleeping something he was saying out, and I couldn't tell what it was. It went by a little too quickly for me. Did you catch that?
Was he dropping the F-bomb or something?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was cursing or if he.
I think he was dropping a name, if I remember correctly, but I couldn't figure out what it would be.
Yeah, I thought it was a name too, but I couldn't figure out what it was, and I just was like, I have no idea. So who knows? I do think this is becoming pretty intriguing, and in some ways we're getting a little bit of a slow burn, maybe a slower burn than they would have done otherwise, because of all the circumstances. But it was good.
Yeah, it was really entertaining. And Jake, I think the pre-tape promos seemed to be a little bit better for him, as he sounded a lot better in this. And I like the kind of fire, Jake hanging out in the basically going out to the backyard in the rocking chair, right in front of the bonfire there. Although I would like to point out one thing afterwards. Cody said Archer doesn't have a large body of work here, meaning the United States. Hey Cody, Archer was in the Bad Three Letter Company and TNA both. Gotta. I had to.
Jay, whoa, Jay, sorry.
I thought he was talking about AEW.
Maybe, but the person you're thinking of that was in TNA and the Bad Three Letter Company was Vance Archer. So,
so Vance Archer has that body of work here, not Lance Archer.
Yeah, that works too. I like that explanation, Steve.
Yeah, well, there you go. I just had to be my little wrestling nerd.
Oh, I found something factually incorrect.
I want to say something that I did feel like was a little bit factually incorrect when Cody said, "Oh, he doesn't have a big body of work here." I thought he meant AEW, but it doesn't matter. And he was like, people don't start with Cody, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Everyone starts with Cody.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Like, and Cody,
who didn't start with Cody?
Yeah, right. Like, it's like, oh, we want to make you big, and whatever, you go up against Cody, and like whether it was Darby or MJF to a certain extent, like Cody is he is the maker of heels.
Yeah, I mean, all the heels so far, most of the heels so far debuting have started with Cody. So I thought that was a funny little. Maybe he was kind of being tongue in cheek about it.
I think he was being serious, but and for Cody the wrestler, yeah, it makes sense because he's has a really good record, and he's a main eventer. But yeah, when it comes to these kind of moments, it is usually Cody who's helping a fella out. He tried to do it with Sean Spears even.
So we got a little custom Darby entrance, really fun, or entrance video, I should say, pre-entrance video. And then we got Darby against Kip in a fun little match. And man, it just goes to show you, Darby can go, man. He is a star, no crowd. He still goes out there and puts on a great freaking match.
Yeah, he is fantastic. I love his little weird videos. They are pretty fun. good commentary from Cody on this match, and calling out that Darby is a counter wrestler. And you watch it, you're like, oh yeah, he is. That's kind of cool. Calling Darby a young Sting, which I thought was a little weird because Darby might be a better wrestler than Sting was at this point in his career, but I digress. And then, something surprised the heck out of me, and I think this is probably really smart because he didn't go for the coffin drop once in this match. Is the his new little finishing move.
Yeah, you kind of switched it up a little bit. Probably a good thing, too, is I can't imagine the coffin drop is terribly easy on the body and something you want to be doing a lot night in and night out. So good on Darby to switch it up, add a nice, cool little pinning combo there, and save that coffin drop for another day. Right, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good idea to have multiple finishers, too. Sometimes you want to go for one and have another as a backup. It gives you a lot of freedom to have more than one thing that finishes a match, right?
Yeah, it does. It gives you some kind of teases that you can do and different setups, and I love the pinning combo. Period. It's a very kind of lucha thing, right?
And it kind of gives you the freedom to eventually kick out of them, right? Like you can protect, like the coffin drop is super protected. This move has won him one match. Maybe this is a move you build up a few times and then you have somebody get out of it or kick out of it or whatever. And people are surprised, and then you do the coffin drop and that's the victory.
Or it's like his equalizer move because he's a little bit smaller and
sure
he can hit it out of anywhere and he can put it on somebody bigger than he is. And
have Darby put it on Jake Hager,
yeah.
And Vance Archer.
Oh man, wow! Calling him by his old name.
He kind of deserves that for calling Kenta Hideo.
Oh yeah, in the G1, smacking him in the face and telling him, "You're not Kenta, you're Hideo." And then Kenta's face of like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you," in response. Oh man. All right, and speaking of Hager, by the way, we had him doing a nice little squash on Chico Adams. Not
yes, sorry Chico.
Yeah, sorry Chico. Not Brian Alvarez. Not Chico Alvarez. Chico Adams. And got to see a return of your boy Scotty John Moxley coming out with the big belt.
Yeah, Mox is back. He was allowed to enter the building. Came in and gave him after Jake just totally squashed Chico. Mox comes in, sneaks up, gives him the Death Rider. But what the heck, man? Hager jumps right back up and goes for his ankle.
Yeah, he popped right up, swept out the leg there and got the ankle. But Mox was able to roll out and avoid it. It's still, I mean, as you said, Mox was allowed into the building. I don't know if Mox was so much allowed into the building as Mox is going into the building. Good luck trying to stop him.
Well, also, there may be very little security because they're not allowed to leave their homes.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe Mox just rolled up in the Ford GT and there was nobody there. And he's just like, oh, screw it. I'm just going to come on and hit the Death Rider.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Moxley would be a pretty good survivor in some kind of post-apocalyptic scenario. So this just suits him.
Steve, do you think the Death Rider is an effective finisher in the post-apocalyptic world?
Well, it attacks the head, so it's good for fighting zombies.
It's good for fight. You got to like hit him on the concrete with it, though, right?
Sure, but whatever.
Well, next up, we had the Exalted One having a little promo with the Beaver Boys. The Exalted One, Brody Lee, enjoying a delicious steak. Scotty, what do you think? Was that bad boy medium rare?
It looked like it was, actually. I had a question for you guys about this because, I'm watching it and they do the sneezing thing and like, you don't eat until I eat, and he's wearing the suit. And I was like, oh, is he doing a knock on Vince? Is that what this is?
Totally. It totally is.
Look, there's no direct shots, all right? Like, nobody invoked anything, no names.
That nobody invoked the "such good shit" catchphrase.
Right? Exactly. You can't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad they did this because I think they probably need to do some more things like this because even though Brody Lee, I thought, he drew a an easy match going up against QT Marshall after this promo ended. I still see him as, one of the Wyatts, right? Like he was just kind of he was just one of the big thugs for Bray Wyatt, and it's still weird for me to think that he was the one behind the Dark Order. So they need to do some stuff where he talks about his plans or something. I don't know.
I mean, it's only the second week. You got to give him a little bit of time to build up.
Well, in this week, that's what I'm saying. They did it this week, right? Like I was just kind of like, oh, okay, he's not Swamp Guy anymore. This is something, you know what I mean?
He's wearing a nice suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a nice suit. His hair is all nicely dyed black. He doesn't have the salt and pepper thing going on anymore.
He's not being quiet. He's not playing a character that speaks little, which maybe
and just grunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more he speaks and talks, like actually I think is going to be really helpful for us to erase our preconceived notions.
Yeah, I mean, he even enjoyed a nice little glass of vino there with the steak for a good pairing, right? You're supposed to pair a good full-bodied red with the steak to bring out the flavor. That's right, Scotty?
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
I looked at you because you I know you and the Northern Belle are wine connoisseurs, so that's why I was going to you on that one.
Totally, yeah. And he's got the wine, he's got the steak. Looked like he had some broccoli with it. So he was being pretty healthy. One of the two fiends, what are they called again?
Creepers. The Beaver Boys.
The Creepers. Oh yeah, one of the Creepers, the Beaver Boys. Man, he looked like he had a really nice steak and a big old loaded baked potato. I hope that didn't go to waste.
Yeah, I know, man. He made him leave the table. Maybe he just started wolfing down on their food after he kicked him out, right? He was just like, oh, I'm going to sample a little bit of that, that casserole, the mac and cheese,
It looked like a tasty meal.
It did. Steve, what are you pairing? If you're the exalted one, you've got a nice medium rare steak. What's your drink pairing with it?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot, Jay.
I'm putting you on the spot, Steve. I
Why
want to
did
see
you do this to me?
I know you're a man of refined taste. So I look to you for a drink pairing wherever you are. I don't know.
I guess it's like maple whiskey then, right?
Maple whiskey. Is that a thing?
Probably. I think it sounds like a thing to me.
I think it sounds delicious.
If it's not a thing, it definitely should be.
Oh, it's a thing.
Oh, it is? All right. Well, you're going to have to ship us some. Can we do that legally?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
No. All right, Scotty, you're going to have to make a run across the border.
That's cool.
When things calm down and pick up some maple whiskey.
Yeah. I bet I can find some around here.
Yeah, you can. You probably able to. So after the Exalted One enjoyed his nice meal and hopefully let it digest, he had his match with QT Marshall. And man, I did love with this that Cody was calling out his boy QT Marshall's hair transplant surgery. I mean, putting him on the spot there.
that was actually kind of funny. And I looked and I'm like, oh yeah, that is what's happening. Maybe QT's like, man, if I'm going to be on TNT every week in some capacity, I better freshen up my look.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, AEW is already pressuring people to get plastic surgery. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I don't think the hair is made out of plastic, Jay.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I've never had a hair transplant, so I don't know. Maybe they put plastic hair in, like doll hair.
No,
Yeah.
no. They take a part of your body that's still growing hair and they graft it.
No, I
Oh,
know how it works. It's pretty
Okay.
gross. It's
That's so unpleasant. Why did you have to explain it?
yeah.
Well,
Oof.
as the person that doesn't have a lot of hair, I've looked into it.
Oh wow,
right.
it's pretty. You can have some bad botches, man. You don't want the surgeon to botch that one.
Yeah.
Brody Lee did debut some much better gear this week. I liked it a lot more than what he was wearing last week. The trash bag pants were not a good look.
Huge improvement. And this match, I think, did a good job of kind of framing him up as the kind of wrestler he can be. Certainly, the commentators mentioned he had a little bit of a Kevin Nash quality, and I was like, actually, yeah, they're kind of right about that. Now that he's not having to wrestle like a brain dead swamp guy, and although I do want to say his like discus lariat setup is really weird. Every time he sets up for it, I'm like, what the heck is going on?
That fucking STO thing needs to go.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
It's just like there's no connection to. He's just like, I got you down, and now you can go back up. Please respond in the way I'd like you to now.
Yeah, I mean, if he could like find a way to chain it into a ripcord or something, that might be kind of cool.
If he could like grab their hand and like pull them up and then record them into that sounds really hard, actually.
Yeah, that might take a little bit of coordination, and because like he just kind of spins them around. I don't know. It's just weird. Like he like, I don't know.
It's like a worse version of Big Swole's finish, where she like ripcords them and then elbows them in the face, but just like less.
Yeah,
less good.
I don't know. Maybe Brody needs to get over to New Japan and go see the Rainmaker pull out the Rainmaker a few times.
Yeah, but Brody
live.
Lee in the G1.
Hell, I'd love to see that. Scotty, would you like to see Brody Lee in the G1?
Yeah, actually, based on what I saw last night, I think he'd be a pretty good fit.
That'd be pretty sick to see him join the AEW group over there, the AEW contingent that travels over to New Japan. And speaking of New Japan, we have the former IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kenny Omega defending his other championship. And a championship I would argue just as prestigious, the AAA Mega Championship against
How many
Sammy Guevara.
defenses has he had, Jay?
I believe this is his second defense with it.
I believe this is number 3.
Is it 3?
This was number 3.
Did he have a rematch
Phoenix?
against Phoenix?
He had a rematch. I believe he had a rematch with Phoenix, and then he had a match with Laredo Kid. Is that correct?
Oh no, it was Laredo Kid, Dragon Lee, and
yes,
this
you're
is
right.
number 3. Yeah. So yeah, no, he didn't have a rematch with Phoenix. You're right. I forgot about the Laredo Kid match. Yeah, this.
And
Oh wait, no, did he? No, I think he was supposed to wrestle Laredo Kid, but I don't think it was ever. It was canceled because of the coronavirus.
well, they did say this was his third title defense.
Oh, well, there you go.
They also told us that Kenny is the 11th person to hold this very prestigious title.
Oh, wow. There you go. I mean, it held by such luminaries as Jeff Jarrett, right? Jeff Jarrett, former AAA mega champion.
Doing some stuff in the down in Mexico there, maybe not a good idea.
I don't know. Come on now. So, yeah, this was his. Let's see. I'm trying to look it up right now. No, I think they said it was his third defense. I think it may only be his second then, because like I'm looking at it, Sammy, and then he won it off Phoenix. And then he had a defense against Dragon Lee. So I think it's only his second defense.
I believe I've discovered the one that you missed, Jay.
What is that?
It appears that he had a defense against Jack Evans on AEW Dark.
Oh, I think you're right. I forgot about that. Now I remember. I think, I wonder why it's, maybe I missed it. Oh well, there you go. There you go. So yes, his third defense. We finally resolved it. But I mean, you got to. All of those matches are really good. I mean, Kenny is really bringing some prestige to the AAA Mega Championship. I saw.
Would you say that Kenny Omega is one of the best wrestlers in the world?
Probably, I would put him in the top 5 right now. And somebody mentioned that the last 5 or 10 of the last 5 or 10 defenses, they kind of listed the Kenny's defenses, right? Like a baseball stadium, the arenas in the U.S. And then I guess there was one of the previous champions. I don't know if it was Phoenix or Tejano or somebody did a defense in like the side room of a market. So
well, we are Kenny is definitely stepping it up.
Yeah. Phoenix defended it, and then before him, so it must have been Phoenix must have done it. And then Phoenix, before Phoenix, the holder was Jeff Jarrett. So there you go. Yes, the very prestigious, and it was Jeff Jarrett's second reign. I would like to add. So, yeah, 2 Jeff Jarrett title reigns, the very prestigious AAA Mega Championship. But I mean, this match was a banger, and this match really goes to show you that you look at Sammy Guevara, and he main evented this show, and he put on an absolutely fantastic match. He is another one of their promising young talents with main event level potential. He main evented the show last night, put on a banger of a match, and who knows, maybe we see more main event Sammy. What do you think, Scotty? You think we're going to see more main event Sammy?
Hey, he's got some. I don't know if his music was new or not. It's just the first time I've really noticed it, or it wasn't the Inner Circle music. But I was like, he's got some good tunes to walk into. He's got cool signs, and he had a heck of a match with Kenny Omega. Yeah, I think he's definitely at the top of the list of that kind of next gen young talent that they're cultivating.
Steve, what did you think? Do you think Sammy really showed that he has next level potential?
I think Sammy's been on their list from day one. I think it's really clear that Sammy and Darby specifically have been kind of picked out as people that they're very interested in cultivating. It's just turns out that the first champion was a heel, and Sammy's in his faction. So the guys that got opportunities. Sorry, I should say Jack Perry is kind of the third one in that group of 3 for me, or 4. I guess MJF. There's a lot. There's a lot of them. All right.
Yeah, they have a really good scouting eye and have been able to pick up some guys who are what you would consider in baseball, right? 5-tool prospects, 5-star prospects. I mean, they
by God.
Yeah, it's amazing the wealth of young talent that they had. And Sammy, I mean, he's got charisma. Although he does, and he even has his less than serious side, as we saw him making out with a caricature poster of Brandy, much to her disgust.
Yeah.
That Brandy's face, that reaction just got me. I was totally cracking up at that. That disgusted look on her face. Very, very gifable. So after that, we had the end of the show, which was a Jericho promo where he started by filming, as I mentioned before, the cameraman singing his theme song and then cutting a promo on a drone. Steve, did you think we would see somebody cut a promo on a drone in 2020?
Yeah. I don't know why you're confused about that. It's Matt Hardy, bro. That's what he is.
Oh man, it was just funny. Jericho, he called Vanguard One. Well, he offered Vanguard One a chance to join the Inner Circle.
To be clear, he offered the wrestler first name Van, last name Guard, second last name One.
Oh man, Scotty, what do you think Vanguard One would get joining the Inner Circle? I know Jericho rolled out the Ford GT and some bubbly and stuff, but what can he offer the drone? Like maybe a propeller upgrade, maybe some like a giant tub of oil or battery acid or something.
I was gonna say like some new high capacity rechargeable batteries.
Oh, there you go. Get the nice lithium ion.
Yeah, something that's gonna last a real long time.
Yeah, man, I'm not a huge fan of the broken gimmick. I think we've talked about this before, but all in all, I thought this was a pretty fun little promo. And it kind of a couple parts I was just kind of like, but I mean they ended it pretty strong, and I mean like Matt Hardy, he's a really good performer. He'll find a way to get over. If he has to tweak something with the broken character to get it to work in AEW, I have to imagine that he's going to. I mean, Steve, what do you think? Do you think we may see a more evolution of broken Matt Hardy in AEW?
So I am completely on board with the really dangerous guy who has a very unique worldview and sort of sees something in himself and characterizes it in a way. I'm down for that. The magic fucking teleporting.
The poorly
I liked
edited,
it.
the cutting. I mean, it was the editing was not great though.
No, that's just a little step too far for me in
I
terms
thought it was
of.
awesome.
I am cool. I would see. It's weird. I was cool with that kind of stuff in the deletion videos, the like Hardy compound videos. Doing the kind of mild magic-y stuff there didn't bother me that much, but doing it in the arena with somebody in the ring, and it's like you can't do this anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like, and like once the empty arenas go away, where are you doing this again? It has to be those like edited video packages, right?
Yeah, it's gonna have to be the pre-tape for them to do that. But I mean, they Hardy has kind of established his magical nature, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I was never a fan of magical realism, right? The genre. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that down with the Undertaker shooting lightning or Kane producing fire either. Right? Like that stuff breaks it a little bit for me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Matt just being kind of a crazy guy who thinks he's possessed by a 3,000-year-old spirit, I can kind of go with that, him being kooky and everything, but the going full Gabriel Garcia Marquez, magical realism, not so sure about that. But I mean, overall, I think the segment worked. I think it was a fun little interesting way to kind of wrap up the show. And, I mean, shit, Jericho came out of it today and posted a video on Instagram of himself cutting a promo on his Roomba.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Jericho is the reason the thing worked because he just plays such a straight man. Like such a straight man willing to get pratfalled and like willing to pretend to buy in and put himself out there.
Oh yeah.
I felt like at times I was watching them reenact a scene from like Faust or something like that. And I didn't dislike that. Like even the fact that they were both wearing like the little lapel pin mics, so like they weren't holding microphones like normal wrestling promos.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
They were, telling a story in a much different way. And then like, let's be real, this is wrestling. It ended coming to some fisticuffs.
Ended up in a brawl.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's got to end like that, right? I mean, even though if you're going like more of a play or theater style promo, it still ends in a brawl. It's professional wrestling, right? How else can you do it?
Otherwise, it'd be a
nice. It was nice that this week the good guys got to actually stand tall at the end.
And they're friends. The good guys actually help each other. What a foreign concept.
The bad guys helped each other too. Everybody helped each other because they had alignments and were together.
and we're consistent. Wow.
Well, they've all had to shelter in place together, so they're getting a lot closer.
No.
Maybe that'll help the Elite's teamwork, as if they lock them all in a hotel room for a few weeks.
They do the bad three-letter company version where they're locked in a little cage at the top of the ramp together,
Oh, God.
like waiting around. And it's like, it's a good thing we quarantined together, guys.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, you may have to social distance them in the pods, in the waiting cage.
Okay, we need 8 pods, 6 feet apart.
And make sure that they're wiped down with Lysol wipes before.
Put little hand sanitizers inside of them.
Yeah, why don't they get some hand sanitizer in the ring now for the rest of this? I mean, Scotty, don't you think that would be the responsible thing to do?
I mean, they could just go all the way and just have a tub of hand sanitizer and let the wrestlers wrestle in that.
Michael Nakazawa giving out hand sanitizer.
Oh, that would be hilarious. A hand sanitizer on a pole match.
Oh my God. Yeah, that works.
Vince Russo, no, he'd book a roll of paper towels and a box of Lysol wipes on a pole.
Yeah.
Wait. It's hand sanitizer on a pole, but there's also hand sanitizer available if you need to clean yourself before you get the hand sanitizer that's on the pole.
Yeah, then you got to spray the hand sanitizer over everything and just wipe it all down. Or no, you know what? Just get a kiddie pool of the hand sanitizer and then have somebody push MJF into the kiddie pool filled with the Purell.
There you go.
Alrighty. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. It's always great to break the social isolation and talk some wrestling with you. Steve, thank you very much for joining us, buddy. And stay safe out there, or stay safe up there, I should say, up north.
Yeah, well, I don't have to go outside, so.
There you go. Scotty, man, enjoy that brandy old-fashioned. You're making me want a little drink there, hearing that ice rattle around, man. I'm getting a little thirsty. I feel a little parched.
Yeah, it was. I don't have it anymore. It was delicious. Thank you again for having me, Jay. I do want to let people know, hey, I'm still working on my AEW Trios fan fiction. Installment 3 should be out on this Friday. So by the time you hear it, on my Twitter feed at Scotty Nobelt.
Follow him at Scotty Nobelt. Check out the AEW Trios tournament. He's booking there, fantasy booking. And you can follow us here at the Rudos Podcast at Rudos Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Go on YouTube. Check out the Rudos Podcast YouTube channel. We've got all our episodes posted on there and interviews. We did the video episode after AEW Revolution. And when we can break this social isolation, we'll have some more interviews up there too. You can check out all of our episodes on your favorite podcasting platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or on rudospodcast.co. And finally, most importantly, stay rudo, my friends. Quédese rudo, amigos.